Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to teach you how to make a PSYTRANCE bass using SERUM. And I'm going to be writing it at around, let's put it 138, let's make a prog styled bass line. And I'm making this on headphones, so it's not as good as what it could be if I was doing it through my monitors, but the principle will be there for you to follow. So the first thing is we're going to make a clip and we're going to put our notes in. So I've got the grid set to 16th notes. So then I've got kick drum would populate the first area, and then the bass notes will take up the other three 16th notes. So I'm going to copy that and I'll just paste it across. I'm going to shorten the length of them a little bit, just so they don't actually run into one another. I don't like the sound of it when they run into each other. And let's play this and let's see how it sounds. Cool. So what we'll do is we'll grab an EQ, just so we can see the frequency. And you'll see that the note is resting up here, and that'll be 450 or so hertz, right? So that is way too high for our bass line. We want to grab those notes, we want to hold shift, and we want to go down an octave. Cool, getting closer, down another octave. Close, we can go down even more. Cool, alright, so that is the sort of, that's where we're going to rest the bass line. So the fundamental is going to be 50 something hertz. What is A sharp down there? 58 hertz. Cool. So that's where our sub content will be, and then obviously our first harmonic will be double that up, and then so on and so forth. So we are using a default saw wave here. What I'd do is I'd probably come in here, go to analog, go to basic shapes, and then change to that saw wave. So I've got a bunch of other cool saw waves in here as well that I've been using, but I'll just use something that comes built into SERUM straight off so you can get into it. So that's what we've got. First thing we need to do is we want to make sure that every time this bass note is triggering, it's starting from the same point. We want real consistency in the sound of our bass, okay? So we'll control that using the phase. So we're going to pull the phase all the way down to 0, and then we're going to grab random phase, and we're going to pull that all the way down to 0 as well. So random phase means that every time one of the notes is triggered, it would randomly play somewhere in these areas. The beginning of the note would just start somewhere randomly in there, which would create inconsistency in the sound. So we pull that down to random, so whenever it re-triggers exactly where this phase is positioned, right? So if I've got the phase all the way at the beginning and the random all the way down to 0, it's going to re-trigger from there. If I have obviously random all the way up and then the phasing in the middle, it's just going to randomly start anywhere along there, and that's really not going to be a consistent sound for us. So we'll pull that all the way down. What we will do is we'll chuck on the filter as well. So let's turn on this 12 decibel per octave filter. We've got a bit of resonance on there. We can keep that or take it off, depends on what we like. And I'm going to pull it all the way down to close. So we got nothing coming through. Cool. So we've got that re-triggering exactly where it needs to be every time. We have an envelope here that we can then apply to the filter. So we want to modulate the filter every time that bass note begins. We want this filter to open up rapidly and then close pretty rapidly as well. Cool. So I'm going to draw in a shape like this, and you can hear that that's the sound that I've got straight away. So my decay is going to make it shorter. My sustain is going to control where the filter rests. Once it's snapped open, when it's on the way to closing, whereabouts is it going to stop? If I pull it all the way down, then it's going to go all the way closed. If I pull it all the way up, the filter won't close at all. It'll just stay completely open. So the sustain, I could say, all right, well, it's gonna go from the beginning of the sound all the way to completely open, and then it's gonna come down to halfway closed. Cool. And then I can change the decay, which is the amount of time that it's going to take to get down to 50%. Cool. And I can shape my sound. So I can play around with the attack to get the kind of character I want. I actually like 10ms. It gives it a nice click on the beginning. And then I can control the amount of the filter that's getting controlled, like, the opening distance. So when it comes all the way up to the top, so the attack phase, how far open is the filter going to go? So this is going to control the brightness of the bass line. So if I pull that down, we've got a very dark bass. If I pull that up, we've got a brighter bass. So let's put it around there somewhere. Cool. And then we can come into the first envelope. This first envelope is controlling the overall volume envelope, and we could shape it using this as well. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the attack time to 10ms in here. Cool. And that's our sound so far. Let's make it a bit more interesting. What we can do is we can play it, and we can move the phase, and we can find an area where we feel like the click of the bass is quite pronounced and far forward, so it really gives a nice attack to the beginning of our bass note. So you can see once I go past 180, you're going to notice it goes a bit dull. But around here, there's a real click on the beginning of that bass note. And for this style of bass that we're making right now, we're going to say that that's what we want, okay? So we can go more advanced. What we can do is we can get velocity involved. So I'm going to turn the volume of that oscillator all the way up. Cool. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign velocity to that. And let's say we'll pull it down by 20. And then if we go and we grab these nodes, we can pull them all the way up. If I just remove that modulation, I'm going to do it the other way around, sorry. So we put that on here, and then we'll set it to, let's say, 75%. And then the rest will be controlled by that. So if we have that all the way at the top, you can see that it's playing full volume. But if I pull that down, cool, it's playing 3 different steps of volume. So that is more reduced. And if I pull that all the way down, it'll be all the way at the bottom. If I let the control come all the way down, you're not going to get any volume. So I prefer to work from like 75% all the way to 100%. And then if I pull this all the way down to 1, I know that at a minimum, it'll be 75%. If I put that around halfway, it'll be halfway between 75% and 100%, and then that's going to be all the way up. So let's go ahead and make our pattern using that. And we'll just see how it sounds. It might not sound good, but cool. And I've accidentally copied that over in the wrong position, I think. Let's turn that back onto the grid. Cool, that's better. Now, some people will push the drive on the filter. I don't push the drive because with my monitors, I've like A/B'd the drive, and all it does is it adds volume. It doesn't add like an interesting sonic texture that I can recognize. So I don't want to add volume with the drive. There's no point to that. So let's say I'm happy with that patch. What are the next things that I'm going to do in order to process it? So a lot of the time I'll just bounce that straight down to audio. So I'll duplicate this and I'll say this is the synth, so the bass patch, right? And I'll keep that, but let's say I'll just turn the synth off. And that EQ is not in use, so I'll turn that off. So that's not using any power, and I can just push that away, and then I can freeze this, flatten it, and then inside of here I've got my bass notes, right? And I actually don't work in the session view, so I'm going to come over here so it's a bit more familiar for me. And so this is what we got. And I'll probably delete the rest of them, and I'll just keep these ones because what I want is like hardcore consistency. I don't want any inconsistency. So if I copy that over, every time it's going to be retriggering exactly the same, and that's exactly what I want. So a couple of ways that I would then process this is I could grab FabFilter Satin, which is one of my favorite plugins for just saturation, and I'll come to saturation, and I've got a preset in here, lightly driven saturator. I really like the character of the sound that it adds, so let's have a listen. Cool. And inside of here, obviously, you can decide whether you're going to affect the full frequency spectrum. You could say not let it touch the lows and just touch the highs. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. What I'll do is I'll duplicate that, and I'll write pre-saturator, and this will be post-saturator, and I'll freeze that, and I'll flatten it. Cool. So now I could copy that over everywhere. And that's what we're looking at for the sound once it's been saturated. So it just changes. You can see the way that it changes the waveform. It's really cool. And then you can hear the sound. Cool. And you'll notice that it's clicking on the end. So we'll roll that off. Let's have a listen now. Cool. Now it's not clicking on the end. So that's great. So we want the click at the beginning. We don't want the click at the end. So we've got that bass line rolling, and it sounds real great. The last thing that I would do for it, and hopefully my computer doesn't crash, is and my computer crashes. Sweet. So the next thing that I'll do to give this a bit more attitude is I'll grab TransX multi, and I'll get it in the mono because I don't need a stereo sound. I want a bass line that's right down the middle. Then I'm going to turn off the first two nodes, and then I'm going to adjust the second two nodes. And you can do that to taste. I'm just doing basic settings, and this is mirrored off of the way the eClip processes his bass. So you'll notice, let's turn it off, listen to it. And then I'll turn it on as it's playing. Just watch me when I click this. That really adds such a nice character to your bass. And then finally, what I would do is I would grab the Pultec EQ. This adds a real nice amount of bottom end on it. So what we got here is we've got boosting and we got attenuation. So we can basically make a boost to the bottom end. So turn it off. Turn it on, so it adds a bit of weight there, and then I can push some attenuation, so it kind of makes a nice little it boosts the lows, but then it kind of notches out a little bit in the upper sub. Cool. And what we're going to do as well is we want to make sure that we're gain staging this properly. So sweet. So it's just a little bit hot, so what we'll do is we'll bring it down 1.6 decibels. That was 16, sorry. 1.6. I need to go negative 1.6. Cool. All right, so we're on 0 decibels here. And then after, so I got, after the TransX, I gain staged it, and I brought the volume down so it would hit unity, 0. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the plug-in front of the Pultec EQ, because the Pultec here is going to add volume, right? But before I volume match it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and also set the upper frequencies. So let's listen. So I can target an area upwards. And you can play around with this, and you can make your the curve of everything broader or sharper. Cool, so I've got that. Cool. And then we'll volume match. So we're adding 3 decibels of volume. Let's pull down 3. Cool, and then we can turn off this stuff together. So I've grouped it. We don't have a change in volume. We know that we've volume matched everything. So none of this is adding volume. And I turn it on. What we're hearing is purely the change in character that these effects are adding to the sound. Cool. All right. So that is how I would process my bass line for, that's how I would synthesize and then process a bass line ready for a track. And I wouldn't do much more than that. Obviously, I'd have either made my kick drum before this, or I had at least gotten a working kick drum, and then what I'd do is I'd phase match that kick drum into the bass line. So I will teach that in another video, but for now, that's everything that I'd do with the bass. And I would not, I would probably do some surgical EQ right at the end when I can properly hear it through my monitors, and I'd cut certain parts out that maybe there was some ugly resonances in there or something like this. But that's pretty much everything that I do. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks. Hi everyone. Thank you for watching my videos. If you would like some one-on-one help, I offer one-on-one tutorials over Skype. So if you think that you need a little bit of extra help, please get in touch with me. You can email me. My email will be in the link of the video description. If you would like to support the channel in other ways, jump over onto Patreon and consider becoming a patron. Subscribe to me on YouTube and like my page on Facebook. And thanks again for watching my video. See you in the next one.